The main menu of the Forgotten City has a warning to content creators. Please help to avoid spoilers, it says, by not sharing content from beyond the White Hallway. The game studio behind the game has actually backed down on this warning in recent weeks, but the point was made to me. What happens beyond the White Hallway is good enough that it should be experienced for oneself. And look, I largely agree with that. But when I finished the game, I immediately wanted to talk here about what was beyond that hallway. It is so good that I'm going to spoil most, if not all, of what happens after the White Hallway. It's really incredible, but also, it's kind of corny as shit. And I have spent weeks thinking about why this game and its ridiculous ending have resonated so deeply with me, and I think I finally figured it out. These developers have done something spectacular to make this work, but it's not really a big secret. It's a series of elements involving writing and game mechanics and nostalgia, and I'm gonna break it down for you in this video. But first, hey, if you don't know me, my name's Matt, and I make thoughtful tech and gaming videos here on YouTube. And second, we need to talk about what leads up to this ending. What is the Forgotten City anyway? The Forgotten City is a game by developer Modern Storyteller. But if you've heard of it, then you might know that The Forgotten City is also the name of a Writers Guild of America award-winning Skyrim mod from 2015. The version of the game that I played was remade in the Unreal Engine and released in 2021 as a standalone game. While the Skyrim mod drops the protagonist into a city of an ancient missing dwarven race, the standalone game is set in a city of ancient Romans. The player wakes up near a river and meets a woman named Karen who says she dragged you out of the water. She mentions that there was another man named Al before, but he ran off to investigate the nearby ruins and he hasn't come back. She sends you to follow him into these ruins, and then you fall into a trick slide and down into a pool of water. You make your way through a strange underground city filled with these golden statues that look like they're fleeing some kind of disaster. It's all very reminiscent of Pompeii. And one of the statues that you run across is Al. He's hanging by a rope and he's been turned to gold. A letter he wrote warns you against entering the portal nearby. He says nothing he did after entering that portal mattered, that it always brought him right back to the beginning. But the portal whispers at you, and you enter it. You arrive in the same spot, but at a different time, and you're greeted by a man named Galerius, an ancient Roman resident of the city. And when you talk to him, the camera zooms to his face, calling back mechanically to this game's ancestor, Skyrim. Galerius tells you about this city of 23 people and its single law, the Golden Rule. But he won't tell you what it is. Instead, he takes you to Sentius, the city's magistrate. Now, talking to Sentius and the people around his home, you learn several things. One, that Sentius' daughter Scintilla is missing. Two, that today is election day and Sentius is up against Malleolus, another prominent member of the community. Three, that Sentius is the one that performed the ritual in the Temple of Proserpina that brought you back in time. And four, exactly what the Golden Rule is that these people live under. And this is actually the secret of the hundreds of golden statues in the city, the ones that turn their heads to look at you when you look away. If anyone in the city sins, all of the residents will be turned to gold. Sentius figures you can only have been brought here because someone is about to commit a sin, and he sends you on a quest to figure out exactly who it is and to stop them. I find this setup really interesting, but not just because of the in-fiction intrigue. Like, yeah, what counts as a sin is a relevant and interesting question, but I also find the setup to be campy. The Golden Rule as a premise is just so video game logic that it too calls back to this game's Elder Scrolls origins. And I want to be clear, I don't mean this as a criticism, I enjoy it. The camp works for me. Camp usually works for me. It sets the expectation, as do the Uncanny Valley face models and the kind of wonky, completely ripped from Skyrim combat that you get later in the game. All of it sets you up to know exactly what to expect and to be wowed when the game's writing subverts it by being genuinely stellar. After you leave Sentius, you set out on your mission to find out who is going to sin, and you start by just talking to everyone. Every person you talk to has a different opinion about the Golden Rule, and they all have thoughts about the election and who should be magistrate. You also learn the things that they're struggling with and ways to help them. You can help save a gay man who lives in this town from harassment by helping his harasser with his foot fungus. That one's kind of messy. And you can also help save a man who thinks his only path out of a certain situation is to end his life. And all through this, you're guided by these whispers that presumably come from the golden statues around you. Eventually, you'll come across something, though. Maybe it's a lot of money in a chest that you can use to pay off the debtors of your friend, or maybe it's Silphium that Decius is selling for an exorbitant price. Whatever it is, it's going to be worth stealing. And when you do,
the many shall suffer for the sins of the one.
The many shall suffer for the sins of the one. The golden statues around you awaken, and they start firing golden arrows at you and the others around you. You've broken the golden rule, and the city must suffer. But a waypoint appears labeled Sentius, and it's moving towards the Temple of Proserpina, where you entered. If you run back to the temple in time, avoiding the statues that are trying to kill you, you might see Sentius standing at the doorway, whispering an incantation. You'll then see his body disintegrate, and you'll see a portal appear. You hop in, and the whole thing starts over again. There's something small here that I want to point out. If you've helped out any of the citizens, say maybe you saved Iulia by bringing the Silphium to cure her illness, you can cut Galerius off during his introduction and tell him that he needs to go quickly take care of that for you. It's again a little silly, but it's also just a cool mechanic to let you keep playing the game and exploring, and then not have to retrace your steps, because Galerius just believes you and goes and does it. Galerius is capital G good guy. Man, I just love looping games. Like, we all know there's been a ton of loop games this year and in recent years. Like, Deathloop literally just came out, and I'm trying to avoid spending more money on it. And Returnal came out this year with a similar mechanic. A few years ago, we had Outer Wilds, which just got DLC, and it used looping to tell a narrative that's supposedly incredible. I can't play that game or even really watch it because of motion sickness, but it is very my shit. Hell, even just the resurgence of roguelites is related to this. Sure, those narrative-based roguelites are not always time loops, but they press the same buttons for me. In gaming, I do want good mechanics, and I want to enjoy myself. But what I'm there for, the thing that gets me to play, is the story and the characters. What I don't love is when a game is so big that it's overwhelming. Like, I'll never be able to understand even a fraction of it. That presses all of the wrong buttons for me. What a loop can get me then is depth in character and story and gameplay without the game sprawling out and slipping away from me. And what makes the Forgotten Cities time loop work so well in particular is how it directly ties into its story. Pretty early on in the game, you begin to notice that the residents of the city all have similar stories about how they got here. They were running from a fire in Rome. They lost time, and they woke up near the river to meet a hooded figure. When you share those similarities with the city's priestess, she takes you back into the baths, the ones that you fell into back in your own time, and she shows you a mural as proof of what you might already know. This city, it's the underworld. You're dead. And that woman you met near the riverbank, that was Charon, not Karen, Charon, the ferryman. This reveal, I will admit, is not particularly surprising. You may have picked up on the coin that you gave to Karen at the riverbank, or the several Sisyphus references built into the loop. But even if the reveal is expected, it's not the entire story. It is foundational to the story, however, that gods are real, and that they have some hand in what is going on in this place. There's an obelisk at the entrance to the city's temple. It has 4 different kinds of carvings: Roman, Greek, Egyptian, and carvings of some other origin. And at about eye level on each side, it's missing 4 plaques. Equitia, the priestess, while lore dumping to you about the underworld, gave you clues about where you might find each of those plaques. She'll tell you to start looking for the Egyptian plaque by finding Kabash, the Egyptian resident of the city who disappeared a number of weeks ago. He and Georgius, the Greek man living in the city, were friends. Georgius tells you that he told Kabash that his offerings at the Temple of Demeter had been disappearing, that Kabash had gone into that temple, and that he hadn't returned in weeks. If you go into the temple yourself and you investigate behind the shrine, you find a tunnel. Follow that tunnel and you'll find a Greek man sitting alone in a cave, surrounded by Greek art and instruments. He'll have a philosophical discussion with you about the definition of right and wrong and how that affects the Golden Rule. He'll have you deduce the ruler of the underworld that you two share, the Roman god Pluto, and he'll share his story. This man used to live in this city when its population was entirely Greek. Then the Romans came and built on top of their city. They replaced the names of Greek gods with their own names for those same gods, and they took over. He and a few other Greek residents hid in this cave along with the Greek art that they could bring with them to keep them away from the Roman residents, and they explored the tunnels, one day stumbling onto a full Egyptian city below. The city that they had thought was their own, that had been built over by the Romans, was itself built on top of another, older city. And as you explore that Egyptian city and finally find Kabosh, he forces you to dig a level deeper, down into the Sumerian city that existed even longer before. Jacob Geller recently put out his own video about the Forgotten City, and it would be stupid of me not to mention it here. Jacob, as he does so well, takes the concept of buried cities and brings this video game into the real-world context of cities built on top of one another, and the societal and economic impacts of that in the real world. It's super incredible, and it goes far deeper into this aspect of the story than I have the ability to do. But the thing that strikes me is that while the Forgotten City uses a time loop as a game mechanic for you to solve a mystery, there also exists this sort of cultural and societal loop within the history of the city that it presents to you. Time was not actually looping for these various communities, or else they wouldn't have been lost to it. But a pattern took hold, and it saw history and culture erased and rewritten by each culture's iteration of this golden rule. Then a fresh new group of faces would appear, absolutely sure that they knew what it took to meet the challenge. The way this game uses religion, specifically the renaming of gods like Hades to Pluto or Persephone to Proserpina, specifically aids a smooth descent into a corny landing. You're introduced to Charon early, and Aquitia even mentions that the Greeks once spelled it Charon with a K. This legitimizes the existence of gods, as does the Greek stranger in the cave asserting that Pluto is the one running things down here. If you're still here, I'm assuming that you're okay with spoilers, but I want you to know that we're getting into the end game. This game has multiple endings, but I'm really only going for the big one. Ending number 4. Once you've collected the 4 plaques and placed them into the 4 sides of the obelisk, the temple will open its doors for you. The first room is a Roman-designed room, easily the size of the temple as it's represented outside the building. But you can walk through and say the name of Pluto at the door at the end of the hall. Walk through that door and you'll see another enormous room, representing the city's Greek history. This door opens with the name Hades. The Egyptian room's door opens at the name Osiris. Say the name Nergal to the Sumerian door, and you'll find yourself in the White Hallway. A lot has been said about the Ancient Aliens trope. Is it racist? Absolutely can be, especially when it is considered as a conspiracy theory and applied to real life. Does it suck the life out of a story? It can. Some people will tell you it always does, and others, like me, will say it depends. Is it the basis for my favorite television show of all time, Stargate SG-1? Abso-fucking-lutely, and that shit is great. I think, however, whether or not Ancient Aliens works really depends on if the story earns it. And while I don't think that, for example, Indiana Jones did it well, I think the Forgotten City gets it right. Could they have kept things mystical and not ever put you in a shiny white glass hallway that leads to a corny looking spaceship with a god of the underworld on board? It probably would have worked super well, but they didn't. And that's okay, because they told you a story about the several histories of this city and the gods and the customs that govern those communities and shaped their understanding of the Golden Rule. And, well, Pluto wants to talk about that. Charon, looking now more like Anubis from SG-1, stands to his left, and Proserpina, Pluto's lover, and it turns out the goddess that's been watching you through the golden statues and whispering to you all along, stands to his right. Pluto tells you how he made a bet with his brother Jupiter, that he could build a city where no one sinned, that city was this underworld. Charon welcomed in each wave of the dead, and they each died, being turned to gold after breaking the only rule. A lot of time in the scene is devoted to arguing with Pluto about what constitutes a sin. He actually quotes the Golden Rule as we know it from the real-world Bible, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's how he sees it, at least at some point. But ultimately, this argument feels to me like arguing with that guy in your college philosophy class who has to be right all the time. There's a couple ways out of this encounter. You can either convince him that the rule itself is the thing corrupting the city, or you can kill his beloved Proserpina, steal her crown, and come back in the next loop to prove that you bested him. Either way, he agrees to do away with the Golden Rule, and he'll send you back to your own time. When you get back, you find yourself at the door to the temple. And Al, the man who looped before you, is there holding a stone tablet. He tells you that the tablet is written by a man named Galerius, and Galerius writes that this city lived under the tyranny of the Golden Rule until one day an oracle arrived, solved all of the people's problems, and demanded an audience with the god that ruled over them. He says a voice rang out saying, "The many have suffered long enough." And that's really all you get about what happened after you broke the loop. You and Al meet up with Charon at the riverbank, and she ferries you back to the land of the living. But it's not over yet. It's 1 year later, and Al has invited you to a museum full of artifacts from the Forgotten City. He says he's sorry he had to be so cryptic, that he's been planning this for some time, and then he leaves you to explore and asks you to meet him at the end of the hall. As you turn the corner, you see an unmistakable bald head. It's Galerius. He's not sure that you'll remember him, because as he sees it, you only had one conversation at the beginning of the day of the election. He tells you that after you left, Charon came back to the city and told the people there that she would ferry them back home. Only she brought them back to your time, not theirs. She gave them all an amount of money and let them live out their lives. Galerius and Aquitia bought a villa in Umbria and got engaged. Galerius tells you that there is a museum full of people waiting to talk to you. As you walk through the museum, speaking to all of these characters that you've spent time with over the last several hours, each of them has a different understanding of how they know you, but they are all thankful all the same. This kind of saccharine and celebratory orchestral music plays behind the entire scene. It's probably a little much, but it works for me. These folks don't quite know what they're thanking you for, but you care, because the game made you care. It was your actions that saved 2 of these people from ending their lives due to their debt bondage. It was you who stopped an assassin from killing one of them. You were the one that stopped a man from being harassed by another for his sexuality. And the game fumbles that particular story, but it's whatever. Galerius has the most reason to be thankful, as you made him the city's hero by telling him exactly how to save all of the people on that last day. You actually got him elected magistrate. They all have reason to be thankful, and you've spent enough time with them that just seeing them in this setting is joyful. But there's roughly 1,000 other former residents of the city that you can't speak to. The ones who were all turned to gold. There's this really tense, almost horror segment in the middle of the game. It's right after you acquire a bow that can turn things to gold. A resident of the city, Navia, has locked herself in the city's palace and has been experimenting on the golden statues, because she discovered that the people that were turned to gold are still alive. At first, she wonders if she can break them out and begins to peel at the top layer of gold, only to discover that it is only the skin that is metal. Underneath, their bodies are living flesh, and her experiments are torturing them. The whole sequence is really gruesome and full of these zombie-like, flayed, partially golden people charging at you and begging you to turn them back. I actually found it to be one of my favorite parts of the game, but the game does let you skip it via a dialogue option and a hidden key in one of the residents' rooms. But this sequence changes your relationship to these golden statues. They're not frozen, Pompeii-like, and dead, only there to remind you of the consequence of the Golden Rule. They're not even just agents of Pluto, who turn to look at you when you look away, and who activate to make you one of them when you break the rule. They're fully conscious human beings, encased in gold, and trapped in an underworld that they once called home. What came of them then? Do they still stand frozen in the city, wondering where everyone went? At the end of the museum hallway, after you've said hello to nearly every speaking character in the game and walked under the 4 archways that have been brought from the city to the museum, there stands Al. He tells you there's one more person that you should speak to. It's Proserpina. She tells you that she is the one that orchestrated this entire thing. She never believed in the Golden Rule, and she wanted Pluto to end it, so she convinced Sintius to perform the ritual that brought you and Al to the Forgotten City. She wants to thank you as well, and she has one last surprise for you. I don't think I've ever rolled my eyes so hard and gotten chills to that level at the same time. All of the people that were golden statues have been turned back to humans and are there to celebrate and thank you. It's corny. It doesn't really make sense, but I love it. I was grinning like an idiot. And it only works, I think, because the time looping endears you to the Forgotten City and to its people. It's a small space and a small cast, but the amount of time that you spend there doesn't feel like a retread, because you're diving deeper into the story and learning more about the characters every time you revisit an area of this kind of dated, endearingly campy game world. Your expectations are set early, and while the game takes some very compelling tonal turns to make its point, it delivers on the original promise. It's okay if you weren't a fan of it. I was, and I hope that if you haven't played it, you'll go do it with all of this context in mind. Do the stuff for the algorithm if you don't mind. Like the video, leave a comment, you know how it goes. I'll see you all next time.